of the lost continent of Mu.
This is podcast number 8, James Churchward and Space Aliens. In conducting research on my great-grandfather, James Churchward, I am sometimes confronted with references to his works. In some cases, the proposals supported by his words agree in principle with his worldview. In other cases, such as video games and science fiction, the references to his work are meant as a lark or obviously not part of a scholarly work. Another category encompasses those academic theories that associates James' words and theories with those that he did not espouse. This podcast documents yet another example of the use of James' views. Today I want to address a concept that has leapt from God knows where to intersect my time-space continuum. This commentary addresses the links between James Churchward and space aliens. It is true that James Churchward mentions flying cars, or Vimana, in his 1931 book, Children of Mu. But these accounts were quoted from documents he had seen in India and the ancient tome known as the Ramayana. This ageless book, quoted extensively by James, was, according to legend, written by the sage Valmiki, as told to him by Narada about the life story of the Hindu deity Rama. Please note that although James mentions the aircraft being able to circle the Earth continuously, at no juncture does he state, imply, infer, or otherwise conjecture that these devices leave the atmosphere. Also, there is no mention of extraterrestrial beings anywhere in any of his published works. Neither have I found references to these beings in his newspaper clippings. Whatever James thought about space aliens or UFOs, he did not write about them. Now to the event that brought this concept into my space-time continuum. A few years ago, I organized a public function and was approached by what appeared to be a quiet, polite young man. He immediately wanted to know if I was Jack Churchward and if I was related to James Churchward. I said yes and continued on with plans for the function, not thinking that he had anything further. After about 10 minutes, I became aware that the nice, polite young man had not left my side and was still following me around. I asked him if there was anything else he needed from me. Imagine my surprise when he, with a completely straight face, asked me if I could put him in touch with the alien mothership that was parked on the other side of the moon, with all of the ascended masters, including James. I told him that I did not know what he was talking about, but my guess is that was the wrong thing to say, or the right thing to say if I was trying to hide the fact. I gave no further thought to his question and continued working. It took about 20 more minutes before I realized that my new best friend was shadowing me and would not relinquish his place beside me. His demeanor and behavior was unnerving. I asked him to please stand someplace else, and when he refused, his friends thankfully intervened. It was unfortunate that he was unable to cease his fixation on my person and the location of the mothership, because after a short while it became necessary to call the police. I later learned that the young man was eventually admitted to the hospital for psychological evaluation. I imagine at this point it's necessary to explain my positions on the young man and space aliens. First, had my new best friend backed off and not followed me around so closely, I would have gladly given him some time later to discuss whatever was on his mind. It was not his beliefs, only his behavior, that caused his friends to have him committed. As far as UFOs and or space aliens, I have no first-hand knowledge of the mothership on the other side of the moon. Neither have I been contacted or personally seen anyone that convinced me that they were extraterrestrial. Having said that, the universe is a big place, and it would be awful arrogant to think that humans from Earth are the only intelligent species in the vastness of space. So how does James Churchward get linked in with the mothership and the ascended masters? I never got to speak with the young man again to find out how James was connected to the mothership, so either it was a product of his deluded psyche, there was some basis in literature, or a combination of the two. Therefore, what reference to the mothership are out there, and what about the ascended masters that are on board? First, allow me to state that before I started looking into this subject, I had no idea that it was such a hot topic on the internet. I have found galactic histories that go back millions of years, lists of the extraterrestrial beings already here on Earth and the channeled messages from them. The pages where this information is presented appears to be treated seriously by those who wrote them and do not appear to be a fictional representation of any form of game. The source for much of these materials seems to be from channeling, which, unlike James' publications, is the result of the alien being speaking through a human here on Earth. There does not appear to be any shortage of material involving the ascended masters from outer space, including their pictures and conspiracy theories, but how is James Churchward connected? It is true that some of James' theories may have been influenced by Madame Blavatsky and Theosophy, and that some of her channeled messages came from extraterrestrial sources, but James never mentioned that he was in contact with or was contacted by masters from another planet. He does reference his encounters with the Rishi, but never suggests that the Rishi was anything but human. Now in the 1953 book, Flying Saucers Have Landed, by George Adamski and Desmond Leslie, the passages mentioned above from the Children of Mu and the Ramayana is mentioned and quoted. The authors also quote from the cosmic forces of Mu to establish their points. However, there is no mention that James talked about their extraterrestrial origin. Therefore, if there is further data that shows the connections between the mothership and my great-grandfather James, I would like to read it and publicize it. It will help me understand where the young man was coming from and bring closure to a bizarre experience. Well, thank you for listening, and have a great day.
This production copyright 2008 by Churchward and Company. All rights reserved. For further information, visit our website at my-mu.com.